Starting the festival, I have to say, looking back, didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. um, but I think we shared the vision of just from Glenn's background. I think that he just really understood what it took to create like this really good party.
This is festivalPass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next. All right, friends, this is the festivalPass Stories podcast, where we are, of course, presented by Dos Hombres, the artisanal mezcal meant to be shared. Don't drink it all yourself, friends. Drink responsibly. Created by Aaron Paul and Brian Cranston. Have a drink with us at doshombres.com/delivery. And ever want to have the opportunity to invest in a product early that could be the next Airbnb? I could see by my guests' faces, they're like, tell us more. I will tell you more. Learn why entrepreneurs and celebrities with exits approaching 10 billion have already invested in festivalPass. Go to invest.festivalpass.com to learn more. And friends, my guests today are the co-founders of a festival called Imagine. And for the past year and a half plus, and maybe longer, we've all been imagining about going back to festivals. So let's stop imagining, start going, and let's hear all about it and how it began and where it is today, as those memes say, where it started, where it is today. Ladies and gentlemen, friends of festivalPass, it is Maddy and Glenn Goodhand. Maddy, Glenn, in song or maybe in EDM, tell us how you're doing today.
Hey, Pat, what's going on? In song, we're doing well today. No, that's terrible. I won't hurt your audience like that. But
yeah, it would be worse if I partnered that up with a dance. I'd be like, yeah.
No, we're doing well. Thank you for having us on the show. We're excited to be here. And as you mentioned, we are more than excited to actually have a festival this year.
Yes. And it's
super exciting. I think not just for us, but it feels like there's energy building up and people are ready to get out of their house. So we couldn't be happier.
The energy buildup, the pent up demand. These. It's like I always say, if you're playing quarantine bingo at home and you have pent up demand, you may have just won a prize. Pivot, pent up demand, whatever it is. All these buzzwords that we've been using, but now it's all happening. And I want to talk about the festival, but I also want to know, how you got here. You just, Glenn, I'm going to start with you because you graduated Penn State. Go Nittany Lions! We're about to hit football season here. I know this is very exciting. Then you go, we should bring some Dos Hombres to a Rolling Hills tailgate, right? I mean, those beautiful rolling hills in Happy Valley.
There's Amish country. So
it's going to be amazing.
Don't run over the horse-drawn carriages on your way. But
that's how we'll deliver the mezcal to the tailgate. But anyway,
that'd be cool.
Yeah. After Penn State, you head to law school. The legal career is looking great. Things are on track for this very stable, wonderful life. And then you go from the legal world and clerking for judges, quite literally, to co-founding an EDM music festival. Now, people talk about journeys. Take us on yours from clerk to, DJ sort of.
Sure. So it was before the clerk thing that kind of just started I try to give you the nutshell version so I don't put everyone to sleep here. Although it is exciting and there's funny little micro stories that are absolutely crazy throughout the journey and, like everyone's journey, I suppose. But mine started, I was born and raised in DC, moved to New York, loved the music scene up there. Was going to parties and beautiful nightclubs like Peter Gatien stuff. So the Tunnel.
Oh, like the Tunnel. Man.
Way back. And then big parties, Park Rave Madness and these type of things in New York. And then that's actually right at the same time I was actually going to Penn State in the mid 90s. And then I graduated, came down here. And then when I came down here, I was working for an uncle doing commercial real estate and great job. But I also love the nightlife and I love music and I was a b-boy. I love dancing. So I would go out at night and it was a whole new thing because I had a couple dollars in my pocket because I had a job. But anyway, I lost that job because I was going to sleep during the day because I was going out at night, and I was supposed to be somewhere and I wasn't, and so I got fired by my uncle. So anyway,
There you go.
yeah,
Glenn, here at the office, we stay awake between the hours of 9 and 5. You're like AM or PM, because I'm just
yeah, exactly. So I was
on the reverse schedule.
It was terrible. So anyway, I was still going out down here, and again, I was a good dancer, and so I started to get some friends, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want to be a part of helping throw the event?" I said, "Sure." So that was in the like late '90s ish, and mid late '90s, like '97 ish, and so I started a company called Iris Presents. We started doing after parties for other things going on, and I sort of trying to pull the energy and the style of New York down here into Atlanta because it didn't feel like they were really doing it properly, I suppose. And so it was funny because I would put a velvet rope out front even though there was nobody inside, and it was just kind of silly.
I love that move.
I mean, I'm like 20 years old. I'm like have no clue what I'm doing at all, but I do know that I like music and I like big sound and craziness going on, inside with stilt walkers and cross dressers and just anything crazy, LED light people, whatever, anything crazy. I love it. I was like, let's do that, and so I tried to bring some of that to Atlanta, and that was sort of the impetus, I guess, behind getting all this done. Well, anyway, that was going really well. I started a weekly called ESP 101 Learn to Believe. It was going really well, and there was this time in electronic music in the early 2000s, and when it sort of took a little bit of a nosedive, where it was like this rave culture, which we called those parties at the time, but it was called raves, and we never called it raves. We called it parties, of course, because that's what it was for us.
Yeah, no, it wasn't an illegal garage.
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly.
No.
What do you mean? We were doing all kinds of fun stuff back then.
All on the record.
But we had a place called the Church, which we rebranded called the Church. It was just a old empty hall, and we bring in sound and lighting every week, and then hide a keg behind the bar, and like, oh, the cops are coming, hide the keg, all that fun stuff. So we were doing
the limelight of the South.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a little bit more underground feeling, I guess. But so anyway, we went from that to there was this lull in the rave or electronic music world because it had not really been picked up from mainstream media and mainstream yet. It was negative. It was negative connotations about the rave world and all these things because it wasn't exactly safe back then. There were, you really would be breaking in sometimes to weird warehouses, and you'd have an info line and you'd go these maps just to get there. So and people were doing who knows what, and so there was a sense of danger, I suppose, and not necessarily fully safe. Well, at some point. And this is all when like Disco Donnie in New Orleans got caught up in what they called the Rave Act, and Biden is actually the one that brought that act up. And anyway, he got cleared of everything, but they were trying to somehow in this big net say that the promoter was somehow responsible for anything illegal that was going on inside of those events. And so anyway, it got dropped, of course, but that during that time is when everybody was really coming down on this particular style of music and this word called rave. And so there was this huge dip in how popular it was. So when people were still doing shows, but hardly anybody was going out, it was really hard to get a license. And that's when everyone sort of started to move into like more established proper nightclubs and venues. And that's also around the same time, right before that was when I was like, well, the music is stopping now, is slowing down. I kind of saw waves in the past going on with this style. And I thought, well, what's my next step on bringing my career or doing what I need to do to take it to the next level? And that was going to law school. So I went to law school, graduated, say clerk for a judge. I won't mention her name.
To protect the innocent. We will not mention the name of the judge.
But no, that was a great experience and it was wonderful. But right about that same time when I finished that, it seemed like music was starting to pick up a little bit again. Maddy and I met. And when we first met, she was like, what kind of music do you like? And her parents are super conservative. And so I was like, well, Well, actually, I'm a lawyer and, and I do real estate. I didn't mention anything about, I was the biggest rave promoter and all this stuff, anything like that, of course, So, but she was like, well, how do you know everybody? We're walking around the grocery store.
So this is great. Yeah. And I'm going to jump in because I want Maddy to get involved here because this is also part of the story of how, he's courting you and he's this, I'm a lawyer and I'm a man who understands real estate from the business side, and then you're like in the grocery store, and people are like, "Yo, that party was sick," and you're like, Glenn's like, "Yeah, enough." It's like you're walking around with the Godfather from old school. It's like, Godfather. That guy just call you the Godfather? No, it's a joke. It's nothing. So you kind of, Maddy, you sort of find out sort of along the way, I wouldn't say by accident, but just from spending more time with this guy, this conservative commercial real estate lawyer, that he's also been throwing the hottest parties in Atlanta, minus, for the last 10 years, minus the last, couple, because he took a little hiatus. And then as the story goes, but you say to him, hey, you know what? Why don't we put on a party together? We can do this. I've got this experience. You've got this experience. We know tons of people. We can make this happen. So was this your idea to say, let's throw an EDM festival? Or was this, how did we get there?
Sure. So,
well, now that's hilarious because it's true. But...
Yeah, I mean, all that's exactly how it went down. I went to his house and I kept seeing, I'd be like, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? He'd be like, oh, it's Iris. I'm like, okay, what's your email? It's Iris. Okay.
Hold on, folks. He's changed the password since then. Do not try and break into the Wi-Fi system. It's Iris XQT.
It's Iris
R, 3 exclamation points, -B. Now.
But yeah, so I kept seeing the word Iris, and he just would never talk about what it was. And then as we would go out, he'd always make sure that we were like, got in immediately. Like everybody at the door always knew who he was, and I was like, wow, like everybody. It's interesting, and everyone would come up to him and say, hey, Glenn, man, like you used to throw the best parties. And I'm like, okay, like you want to tell me a little bit more about this? Yeah. But it's funny because I actually really liked electronic music before I met Glenn. And when I moved to Georgia, that was one thing, like all the guys that I would meet didn't know what that was, or they
I was going to say, it's not
looked at me like I was crazy. And, I just really liked that style of music and I enjoyed listening to it. So when I met him, it was like an instant click, just the fact that he even knew what it was. And then so as I start to learn more about him, I actually find out that not only does he like the same music I like, but he just so happened to kind of really be a big, important part of bringing that music into Atlanta. So that was really cool. And one of my personal goals was I wanted to really bring electronic music, out to the mainstream because I wanted everyone to hear how great this music is. And so anyways, we start going out and we just, I was so bummed that I never got to go to one of his events because it just seemed like it was the greatest time, obviously, for everybody. And so that was, personally, I just really wanted to go to a party.
Right. That was a previous life, Maddy. I'm not that man anymore. So you're no fun. Oh, don't challenge me. Don't challenge me. I'll bring the fun out.
Like, this sounds great. We need to, let's do a party together. Like, I can help you market. I know all about marketing and social media. And like, I can really like help you get the word out. And I just really want to go. So let's do it. And he's like, Maddy, he's like, you really don't know what you're getting into. Like, I just want you to know, like, it's not like what it's not just like all fun. Like, it's a lot of work and you just have to really like be dedicated to it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of drama. Like, it's just a lot of stuff that you're probably not thinking of. It's not just all fun, but I was down to do it. And so the first party we did together was the reunion back at the church, which he mentioned that's where he used to do events. Came full circle because, of course, the only place to go back and do the parties again is where he used to do it, right?
Yes.
So we did that, and just kind of like long story short, we started doing it. That one went pretty well. I mean, it wasn't as great as we wanted it to be, just because the venue owner wasn't, he didn't follow the contract.
Oops. Anyways, leave it to a lawyer not to follow the contract, and then try to get himself out of that contract as well.
But we kept going, and we started a weekly event together, and we could see that there were people really liked what we were doing. And so as we continued doing the weekly event and that got bigger and bigger, we always felt that we were just sort of constricted by these four walls in this nightclub. It wasn't ours. We didn't share the same vision as the venue owner, because of course they're motivated by different things, which is fine. we understand we own a venue too. But for us as the promoter, we really wanted to throw a really amazing time for everybody and just make it really larger than life, big production, big sound, big lighting, performers, fire, and all this stuff that the venue owner's like,
it sounds so easy.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want you to do all that. The fire
speakers out there, and
yeah, like, hey, let's go outside. Let's put the speakers outside. What's wrong with that?
Easy, no
why?
problem.
Anyways, so
no noise ordinances in this town.
We go late.
No problem.
We just kept pushing, and eventually we just kind of decided, hey, I think either we need to start our own place so that we're just not constricted, or let's start a music festival.
Yeah.
And at that time, we actually were crazy enough to try to do both, but luckily for us, the venue that we were looking at fell through, so we actually were able to focus on starting the festival. Starting the festival, I have to say, looking back, didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. But I think that it was, I think we shared the vision of just from Glenn's background. I think that he just really understood what it took to create like this really good party, right? And this really authentic, we don't like using the term rave because that's, we're
experience.
Illegal, so we're not, but it's an experience, right? It's a really
people
good
have
party.
brought the word rave back, but it's not really, it's still just a big party with lots of fun, and it's all sanctioned and licensed properly. Really, I think that the vibe and the energy of rave, or whatever you want to call it, is still certainly here, and we help because of the authenticity of my history. We can bring some of that back for sure, but people, I think these days, when the whole EDM and electronic music sort of started coming back with a vengeance, I suppose, with the Skrillex and dubstep sound, I think that people started calling that again just because it was cool.
And we would go to these events and we're like, this is not a rave, or whatever you call it. Like, there's no energy here. There's no vibe. Like, the sound sucks.
Terrible,
like, no one's dancing. Yeah. Like, come on.
You could turn the word rave into an acronym, and it stands for really amazing variable experiences. That's what rave always stood for, not what it stands for. It's what it stood for, and that's what we're going to give you. We're going to give you incredible experiences. Okay, you don't like that idea, but anyway, we can work on the acronym. Maddie's the marketing side; she's going to work on the acronym.
Yeah, and
really
that's
amazing.
The whole thing.
Something.
So we had a great marriage. We've been married over 10 years, but even in the beginning, it was sort of a great partnership and marriage, obviously. But because I had sort of the production and I knew how to throw a good party, I knew what I liked, and that's what I like to provide people from back then and now, and bring some of that old school history and vibe into what we're doing. And she had just that. And she's from Finland, so she had the European. They've always liked electronic music and like just that, and her marketing expertise. And so from back in the day when it was sort of just a 20-year-old kid that was a b-boy, throwing a party in the warehouse, having some money for a new hoodie, whatever it was, that was my thing. I was like, I was great with that. But then Maddy was like, no, this is a proper business. And then, that's really the whole reason that it went from, just sort of a thought and a hobby to a proper business. And so the same thing. So we also have a venue now too. So we have the music, we have the festival, and we have a venue. But so they kind of play really well together because we can put some artists in the venue, and then we put them at the festival, and we can give them both bookings for both. But we're talking about the festival here. So
one can promote the other, of course. But speaking of proper businesses, now when you finally get the festival off the ground, you lost money on your first Imagine Festival. I mean, every startup does, right? Every party does. I worked for a nonprofit organization where the joke at the second annual gala, which was 30 years ago, it's like this joke still rings true today. And the MC gets up to the podium and says, "Welcome to the second annual gala. You are here, of course, to pay for the first gala." So it was, and. But as entrepreneurs, you guys weren't shaken. You were ready for this. You knew there was going to be a lot of maybe expenses you didn't see, and then you realized there were security costs more than you thought it would, whatever it was going to be. But what was the strategy for year two and then beyond to eventually get whatever eventually would be to get to profitability and make this thing sustainable?
Yeah, you know what, Pat? I don't think I ever answered your question, the first one. So let me just touch on that for 2 seconds. How I got from legal to this was that the music industry came back. Basically, we met, and she was like, okay, let's do it. And so and then that just started doing. People started feeling it and understanding, and so that's what sort of segued into for getting out of that world and into this. Although we use in contracts and everything all the time, but so
it's funny. I was working at a different job, like a full-time job, while we were starting Iris, and I worked there for like 2 years while we while Iris grew, and then it got to like the year that we started the festival was actually the year that I said, hey guys, like I gotta go for my
leap.
dream.
Start consuming more and more.
Yeah, it took more of our time. I had to quit, but it was a great moment for me to be able to like quit, your day job and actually go do like pursue your passion and just dive all the way in.
Yeah, and then how we got into the first year, we lost so much money. To be completely honest, she was crying. There's so many little funny stories in here in this journey, but like, and everyone I'm sure as entrepreneurs sort of feels this, but she was crying. We actually got outside for the first time outside of our little trailer where we're hiding from bill collectors basically. And we're out there in the VIP booth, and she starts crying. And now and all our friends and stuff are going, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful moment. You're so happy tears, because everybody was having the time of their lives.
You could feel it, like the energy in the air was amazing.
It's great. Yeah. But she was like, no, I'm crying because how much money we just lost. And I was like, oh boy. Yeah. So after that, it was absolutely devastating. We sort of hid in our apartment together and just were like, what are we going to do now? Like, how are we going to get out of this? We didn't
answer our phones. Like, we just didn't even know like how to get out of this hole because it was so deep. At some point I just stopped counting the bills because I didn't even want to know how much it was, the total was because it was just, it was unbearable. And
we had checks. We weren't sure how we're going to clear them on that next week. Like, it was really scary.
But there was like little along the way, I'd say there was just little like miracles that kind of would happen, little signs that would happen along the way. Like, I'd have to write a check for someone not knowing if that check was going to clear, but I had to save face and just be like, okay, like, let's just hope that we get enough money to cover this by Monday. And just, we just so happened to get like the exact right amount, to cover that check. And just along the way, like, we would go, once we finally I think it took a whole month or maybe even 2 months for us to even just get out of our house. We'd go to the grocery store.
Which felt like a year, which felt like 2 years, right?
It was a long time. I mean,
it was your own pandemic. It was your own lockdown.
Yeah.
Lockdown of a different time.
I mean, we would borrow money from like his mom to buy groceries, like just trying to figure out like how to make it. And we'd go to the grocery store together, and then we'd just happen to run into somebody, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, Maddy and Glenn, like we went to Imagine, and it was the most amazing time of my life, and I got engaged there." And I just
literally like tears.
They would literally be crying to tell me.
So that makes us cry, of course. Like, wow, I didn't know it meant that much to people, and some people it does, and for us, that sort of interaction with people, and then those type of emotions that they were giving to us about how much of an amazing time they had at the festival, it just was like almost spiritual, right? For us, it was like, wow, okay, I guess we have got to do this to provide people a little bit of an escape, I guess.
The media was so overwhelmingly good that we just said, hey, we just looked at each other and we're like, well, we just need to figure out like how we're gonna do another one, because I think there's something here. And then we're like, you know what, why don't we just start selling tickets for next year? If people had fun this time, well, maybe they'll want to go. And then just tickets started selling, and we started being able to pay our bills, and it just kind of kept going. And then actually the second edition, we doubled our numbers. We almost broke even, but for as close as we came, it was pretty good. And that year was just so much more manageable. And then that was the year that we're like, wow, okay, we've outgrown our venue. Like, now we need to go find another place to move to, because we were at the Fort Worth Park then.
So it's just like in the crazy entrepreneurial journey, you're like, I don't care what the numbers say. I know what we have here. We're seeing it. We're feeling it. And when we're seeing the people out in the streets, so to speak, they're telling us that they want this, they need it, and we're delivering it. The only problem is, how can we tweak this business model to get to this point where this can be a sustainable thing? And I love that. And there's so much to really unpack in those stories that you were just telling. But I mean, I was going to say that some of these music festivals, people say, it literally changed my life. And it's like, it's hyperbole. That's garbage. And you're like, no, we're running into people at the grocery store who are saying, you did literally change my life because I met the love of my life. I'm getting engaged and we're getting married. So you've changed the trajectory of my life. And you're like, we've gotten through the tough part. Let's make this happen again. So how did you double the numbers for year 2?
I mean, I think year 1, just people had such a good time that all those people had a great time. Now they're bringing a friend, right? So it's just that like snowball effect, right?
Tell a friend.
Right. Tell a friend that you had fun and then that you double your numbers. But I think that's really how it went. And I think we had more time to promote it. Now we had a whole year. We had proof of concept. I mean, all those different things that kind of help you grow along the way.
For us, it's always been word of mouth. Yes, we do marketing, and she's great at that and all that good stuff. And we would hit the streets and do flyer, like my history of being in the street with flyers, from 20 years ago, of course.
Right.
But we don't even use flyers anymore. It's all digital. but just, if we always felt like if we get people there, we could create an environment and experience that people would enjoy enough to say, I'm definitely going back, and I'm going to bring some friends, or at least I'm going to tell some friends about how much fun I had. And that has worked. We're just trying to provide something a little different, a little better, maybe something a little bit more feel organic as far as the overall experience, that we think people will sort of feel the difference, and as opposed to like a big corporate giant coming in and here's your box stage and here's your music from, it just feels
there's like a connection
very robotic as opposed to like this more artsy, feeling of music and art and food and beautiful scenery. And it just, I don't know why, but even for the weekly parties or the old school parties, it just felt different when you put like 2 people are sitting here putting everything, their hearts, their minds, their blood into and then having these great people around us developing this team that really care and get the concept about giving an experience for people that is different than, we have $50 million and here's your corporate lawyer right here that's going to say, nope, sign this signature and you play from 5 to whatever. It was more of an organic feel. And when you put all that effort personally into stuff, it just feels different. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it just feels different than that corporately structured event that's going on out there.
It's the passion.
It's that independent feeling, the independent art, the independent side of a beautiful art piece or whatever. That's kind of what it all went. And then you get all these incredible minds together that are just, some are super structured and some are super artistic, but they're all kind of coming together and putting this giant art piece together that everybody can just go inside of and experience and escape whatever reality or whatever problems we're having in the world for a little bit. And it's just an absolutely magnificently beautiful thing when it all comes together, and so many smart people, much smarter than us are out there helping us develop,
It's an escape. It's an experience. It's something that people look forward to. And we were talking about this earlier, that there's just so many great festivals on the calendar and so many things that people are looking to get back to. But what separates this festival to make it that, stamp it with a cow brander on my calendar every year for those people who still use paper calendars and don't use the iPhone. But what makes it that thing that's like, I don't care if my sister's getting married, I'm going to Imagine?
I'd say one word, I can sum it up. It's the vibe. It's just completely, it's different from every festival because I just think it has this authenticity in it that makes us stand apart from all the other, he talked about already, but like all the other kind of corporate giants, which are great festivals too, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But there's something different about when you come to Imagine, and maybe it's the amount of passion that we put into it, but it's this vibe that we're all kind of there together sharing in this shared experience that it's just unlike any other. Not to mention we have, a fantastic lineup, a diverse lineup for every different taste in electronic music, but I can tell you that there's just something different that you'll feel when you're there. And I hope that moment will change your life.
Another thing that we also really pride ourselves in, and we have from the beginning, is bringing in younger developing artists, whether that's DJs or fire performers or trampoline acts or yoga instructors, whatever it is, bringing these younger developing people, getting them out of their bedroom, giving them an opportunity and a platform to expand on what they're doing. And I sometimes get yelled at from from our directors and higher up that, Glenn, stop being such a burner or hippie type of promoter here, because I just feel like I like that energy that brings. Not just, okay, that's the best person at doing whatever that is. Okay, let's bring them in only. For me, it's fun to see someone that's just coming up and has these crazy new ideas and may not have their contract right or their insurance right. Whatever. No, pardon my lawyers. They always have their insurance. But,
of course, can't come to our festival without proper
insurance. Of course, all their insurance. Yeah. But all these things that aren't quite in business structure yet, but they're just amazing artists, and they're just so excited to get out and perform and be there. Like having a bunch of those people there, kind of walking around, and then some people are trying to figure out, is that person actually part of the festival or not part of the festival? And it's this really interesting, I think, dynamic when where everyone is sort of becomes part of the act and part of the experience. It's not just, it kind of brings the guests into the whole experience as opposed to just the people that you're paying. So you have boys running around, and you have all these crazy costumers and influencers and stilt walkers and fire breathers and all this crazy stuff happening everywhere around you. But if you come to the show, you wouldn't even really know. Do you think, is that guy just a badass breakdancer right there, or is he part, like, did they get paid to, you just don't know. And like that just kind of crazy experiences that just kind of pop up all over the place, I think is super fun too. And the independent thing, like Maddy said, is I think what drives us all this. And we've put a lot of our vendors through the ringer as far as just keeping the faith, and hey, please, stay with us. Let us get on payment plans. The struggle, right?
Everyone says that our festival is the most amount of work compared to any other festival they do for whatever reason.
The struggle.
Like, you get me to sign up and you make me think this is going to be easy, and then for whatever reason, imagine it's like the toughest festival to produce.
Yeah, and getting to that struggle piece, and then all of a sudden it happens and everything's working and everything comes together. It's just, it's magical for us.
There are just so many moving parts to any party, but when it comes to a festival, it's a whole different story. But in all those moving parts, there is a strong economic impact. And do you guys, have you been able to see any of those numbers? Like, has the general metropolitan area of Atlanta come back to you and said, we're seeing the hotels book up, we're seeing restaurants, we're seeing people stick around, we're seeing people, maybe even move here because of this vibe that you guys have created? Maddy used that word vibe, and you said, if I could describe it one term, it is that word vibe. But I don't know, just thinking from a sponsor standpoint, is the city, is the state, the tourism board, is anybody getting behind this effort? Yeah,
I would say for sure. Especially, we just moved to Chattahoochee Hills, which is an absolutely beautiful equestrian center, and it's magnificent. It's in Fulton County now. We were outside the county at the Speedway, and I think we're taking another chapter in the life of the expansion of this brand. And with that, I think we're also starting to communicate much more with those different municipalities. And when we're talking to them, we certainly are getting much more support where they finally actually understand what we're doing and the possible impact economically on the city and the county. The city of Chattahoochee, is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
However, it is all trees. It has not been developed. So the city of Chattahoochee itself doesn't actually get a lot of that economic impact, unfortunately. But the Atlanta airport, every hotel around the Atlanta airport is like completely sold out, flights, and like you said, everything. So there's definitely a massive economic impact on the city from this thing. But this year, I think, is really the first year we're starting to get a lot of support from the community, from the city, from the governor, the mayor, the city council president. Everybody's starting to say, oh, well, that's actually interesting. I think it's a good thing for the city, and it's becoming, finally, I guess this is year 8 for us, technically year 7 in production years, but because we didn't get to produce last year, but and where they're actually saying, wow, that festival, that event is something that we can get behind, and obviously has a very positive effect on the city.
Maddy, I hate to say this, but your old B-boy, party boy, has taken this thing that was a nuisance perhaps years ago and and made it a real community event. I'm sorry, you're with a grown up now. I hope that's okay.
Some days.
I'm still a kid.
Some days. Spoken like a true
married
couple.
On time.
Well, Maddy, maybe you could take me into this because I know we're kind of running out of time, and I've got 150 more questions, but maybe we'll call it a lightning round. But when I hear the term B2B takeovers, I immediately think of mergers and acquisitions from Glenn's old life too. He's, or hostile takeovers from the 80s or something. But folks, when it comes to EDM, we're talking about back-to-back DJ sets. Maddy, why isn't one DJ enough? And explain the phenomenon of B2B DJs and what happens to the crowd. What's that vibe like, to use your word, when they get going?
Well, I think the B2B is it's a newer term. I think it used to be called tag sets, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not that far. I'm not that on it.
No,
you're right. I mean, that's what they call it these days. Now it's B2B, back to back.
Yeah.
Look, every year, we've been doing this for, seven, almost 8 years now. And every year we're just trying to beat the last year's lineup because, every year it's so good. So we're like, how do we beat that? And, this year it took a lot of creativity, thanks to our talent buyers actually really came up with the idea, and we said, hey, how can we make this better? And so they said, hey, why don't we let's approach all these different artists and see if they'd be willing to do a B2B set to make it just more unique and special, because what you're seeing with a lot of festivals is a lot of them have sort of repeat recycled lineups because that's what sells tickets. That's what fans like to see.
Or it's corporate and they're doing 100 shows around the country.
So they book them for all the different events.
And it kind of falls right back onto the uniqueness of independence. We can do whatever we want with the lineup, and it creates a more unique lineup than maybe those other corporate giants are providing.
Yeah. So and it's great that the artists went along with it, and it just kind of made things a little bit more special and unique this year. So, and as far as them playing, maybe you can touch more on the energy that it creates of the.
Yeah, I think you have one good artist and then you put two good artists together. It's like Madeleine always mentions to me, the mastermind, right? When you have multiple smart people in a room, but you are all thinking at the same time over the same concept. All of a sudden, this genius comes out. The mastermind.
Napoleon Hill. You guys can read about that.
The combination of all the minds together, and it's something like that. But not only is it that thinking together, but it's also the energy they're playing off each other, the fuel that they get from each other to sort of play a little bit of this sound and a little bit of their sound, mashing them together. So not only are they already sort of mashing up music on their own and mixing tracks to make new mixes, but they're also now mixing between each other and their different sounds, and it just creates a whole elevated energy throughout the whole festival. And so not only are you having a fan of one style, one artist, you're having a fan of the other one, and they're basically jamming together to from the old jam band.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge to do that too. So I think it takes a skill and confidence in the artist to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would imagine it would take a certain personality. These DJs all have their own personalities and their own brands. So you're asking like Tiesto to team up with, Mark Ronson or something like that. I just pulled two DJs out. I can't believe I did that. But you can see I spent some time in some New York clubs too there, Glenn. But anyhow, if they have their own brand and millions of followers and all this kind of stuff, then I would think it would take a certain personality to be like, I'm so good, I can work with anybody. Like a great guitarist could, just as you said, jam, right? It's like a good guitarist can pop out there. I remember seeing Eric Clapton play with Robbie Shanker on the sitar, and it was like, you can't mix Western music with Eastern music. And then he's playing the sitar, and Eric Clapton comes out there and he's like, and just like, and like the next thing you know, they're playing hand and glove together almost, and they're both playing together. So I would think the smartest and the best DJs out there are like, I'll take on the challenge. Let's go. I can go with him or her, and I can, we can go back and forth all day.
Yeah, and as there's some artists that have gotten, like Tiesto, have been able to stay relevant, and I think some of that relevancy, and some have fallen off, that were sort of legends back in the day. But Tiesto and a couple others have been able to stay relevant with the younger crowd. And I think some of that is also just relating and talking and communicating and helping a younger artist coming up. It keeps their music relevant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in this new location again this year, and it's, let's call it the farm or the forest, but there's trees everywhere and all that. So I like forest. But just because you're in a new location doesn't mean that you're not going to have this daytime pool party, right? I mean, the pool party is back, isn't it?
It's back with a vengeance.
Yes.
Oh, with a vengeance.
Better than ever. Yeah, and that was this year's pool was actually like a pretty big challenge because we always build our pool every year. And now before we were building it on just like flat concrete. Now we're actually building it on like a rolling hill. But I think that adds to it. It's
How to make it level?
Yeah, making it level and everything.
Challenge.
Yeah, but it's gonna be awesome, and we're making it. We're actually this year introducing we're branding it the Aqua Day Club and Pool, so it's now got its own identity. The pool has always been the heart of our festival, but now we're actually building a whole day club around it with cabanas and everything. So it's going to be really fun.
It is good. And this year we have Cascade playing one year, Medusa playing the other, and one of the pool parties.
Cascade's on Saturday and the Medusa's on Sunday.
So it's going to be huge. We never had headliners play the pool party in the past. It's been a thought of the pool parties would be like, we'll bring in, a couple locals and let it happen. And
last year, kind of a funny story. It was like a really last minute idea. We're like, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we had a pool party. And this was like probably like the week or 2 weeks before the show. Yeah. We're like, let's try it. Like, let's do it. And so we gave everyone access to it. And it just, that idea, like we didn't know what was going to come of it. And it just like took off. It just made so much sense.
It was
Everyone
super
had so much fun.
You're not supposed to have kids on site, obviously, but we brought our kids out there, and the energy and everything was just really, really fun. So we're looking forward to bringing that back. Bigger sound, bigger dartist, bigger music, bigger everything. It was a lot more fun. Mm-hmm. But in general, the venue itself is. It's
just breathtaking.
Incredible. It's absolutely breathtaking. It looks like you're going into a whole nother world. And just beautiful sunsets and trees, and you're in the forest, and we're going to light up different stuff. And I can't give it all away, but
okay, don't give it all. No.
All sort of like really cool decorations in the trees and through the forest. And in the past, we've had different experiences with different venues. And this venue, without saying anything about those other venues, we think this venue for sure is going to be a whole nother level of for your experience. So,
all right. Nice. Hey, and you said cabanas, which makes me just immediately think VIP. So why don't you sell me and the listeners on why I should spend a little bit more of my stimulus money on the VIP experience versus just being a general admission ticket?
So if you guys have all been to festivals, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, I've been to quite a few festivals and shows, and I've also had some fairly poor experiences in porta potties.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah. So I think we can all relate to that. Well, VIP has nice air conditioning, trailers, running water, and soap. And so, if nothing else, the VIP bathrooms is certainly number one choice. But aside from that obvious reason, of course, there's bottle service there and nice furniture, and it's just a different way to experience whatever you're looking at. It's usually a little bit closer, so you have good views of whatever you're looking at, whether it's the stage or the pool party or whatever it is. You're closer. You have a little bit more elbow room. It's not as squished. So depending on where you are in your life, you may appreciate those or may not. Some people love getting in and really feeling it, but other people maybe feel like they need a little bit more elbow room and want to sit down and watch the music. And so we have it all. Whatever you want, we've got that for you, whether it's, the super VIP angle, or you want to get into the crowd and be, around 30,000, 35,000 people, you can do that too. So it's whatever you want, whatever you feel like. There's table service, there's cabanas, there's pool party, there's all kinds of yoga and artwork and potato sack races and water slide and amusement rides. I mean, it's just, you can't get through it all in one weekend, really. So
it sounds like it's for kids all of a sudden. You said no kids allowed, but all of a sudden potato sack races. Come on.
We are
party kids.
Kids at heart. All right. Well, I'm sold. So Maddy, on to the marketing department, team of one. That would be you. How do we find out about this? How do we get tickets? Where are we seeing you on Instagram? Accommodations? Is there a package I can buy? Is there one-stop shopping for me to get to Imagine?
Sure. Well, I'll say my marketing team has grown, so thankfully it's not just like me anymore. But yeah, so visit us on our website, imaginefestival.com. You can find us on our socials, Imagine Music Festival on Facebook. You can hit us on Twitter, Imagine Music Fest, F-E-S, no T.
Yeah. Somebody already had that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Imagine Music Festival
Too many
as
letters,
well.
I think, actually.
Just Google search, you'll find Imagine Music Festival. It'll pull everything right up for you to buy tickets.
We spoke about those VIP tickets or weekend long tickets, Maddy. How do we do that? How do we get those tickets?
You can buy your ticket at imaginefestival.com. We have 3-day passes. We have single-day tickets, which actually just went on sale about a week ago. So you can get those if you have a busy schedule and can only come for a couple of days. Other than that, we suggest you get your weekend pass and stay the whole time with us. And then you also can grab your pre-party pass as well. So.
And we also love the camping because camping for us is almost a separate event in itself. And those of you that like camping festivals, you guys can attest. You know, there's the infield and the fun on the inside, but then there's camping with all its activities and all its fun, starting at 1 a.m. on, well, really all day. But we have all kinds of fun stuff going out there too. So it's really 2 separate events all come together, and it's super fun. So
camping, you want to get that now. That's about to sell out. GA car camping is going to sell out like any second. We do have VIP car camping available, which gives you a little bit extra room, better bathrooms and amenities. So check that out. We also have hotel takeovers in nearby hotels. So there's just something for everybody.
And I can pull up my Airstream or I can pull up my RV right into that VIP. I think you said amenities, but it sounded like you said there's a Wendy's. And I was like, ooh, that sounds like a really nice amenity if there was a Wendy's.
We do have a lot of
we do have food vendors there.
Yeah.
We have specialty food vendors for VIP. We have great food vendors for our GA campers, and we got it all.
Yeah. Well, Wendy's could be a new sponsor for you guys and for us. So there we go.
There's a Waffle House food truck these days, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see if we can get them out there for Atlanta feel.
Unbelievable. And the dates of the 2021 event are coming up in September. What are the exact dates?
Yep. So the festival dates are September 17th, 18th, and 19th of this year. And we also have a fantastic pre-party happening on Thursday, September 16th. So, and that pre-party is actually open for all our festival guests, camping, and our people just who are attending for the festival.
And for people my age, you want to take off not only September 20th after you go to the festival, but also the 21st through the probably 31st as well.
Our campground's closed at 2 p.m. on Monday. But,
you can sleep in on Monday, and then you have to get out of there. Please
Every
take
day
your
I get
recycling.
one more day of off work on the back
a
end
week of recovery for me.
Recover,
Yeah, well, you guys are running it. You're allowed to have the week of recovery. But folks, you no longer have to imagine. You can just go. Get to the festival. And hey, I would love to be there. We were talking about this live. Imagine, quite literally is the word, being there with the artists, interviewing them live. And we're going to bring you those experiences soon on festivalPass Stories, maybe live, maybe sooner than you think. Maddy, Glenn, thank you so much. We'll check out Imagine. Good luck with the rest of the planning. And we'll see you guys next time on festivalPass Stories.
Thank
you, Pat.
Thanks,
it was fun.
Pass. Thanks, Dos Hombres.
See you at Imagine.
See you at Imagine.
This is festivalPass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.